There's a debate raging over whether one of Australia's most iconic animals should be classified as vulnerable. Proponents say its habitat is disappearing and it faces a real risk of extinction in many areas.
As habitat slowly disappears, it interrupts corridors for native wildlife to pass through. It's just cannot keep doing this and expect our koala population to survive.
Carers for injured koalas in Port Stephens, New South Wales, say developers get what they want, despite recognised attempts by the council to consider the impact of building approvals.
Everything's been bulldozed and they get driven out by dogs, cars, people, and they end up in all sorts of places where it's really not going to survive.
The person approving development says she's stuck between a rock and a hard place.
The legislation doesn't recognise small-scale effects, and I find it hard. I get these development applications that I look at, and I have to work within the legislation. I don't think the legislation is perfect, and it's frustrating to see this incremental loss of koala habitat because the development's not going to have a significant impact, so therefore I can't refuse it.
Advocates say the rate of new developments could perhaps be slowed if the koala was federally listed as vulnerable, just one rating below endangered. According to the Australian Koala Foundation, 80% of habitat has disappeared since Europeans arrived. They say there could be as few as 43,000 left in the wild. The government, which has previously shunned the foundation's data, was due to make a decision on the listing at the end of September. But to add to the minister's troubles, in some areas, numbers could be rising.
Well, firstly, we don't know how many koalas there are in Australia, and we don't know if they're increasing or decreasing. And secondly, each population has its own threats and its own status, and some are increasing, some are decreasing, some are overpopulated, like in Victoria, and some are rapidly declining, like southeast Queensland.
And at the site of a proposed housing estate on the edge of Sydney, a debate over koala numbers, as well as the presence of a threatened snail, has seen development stopped in its tracks. The case has gone from council to state and federal level, with a decision still pending. And as well as highlighting the importance of accurate koala numbers, one woman who's held a range of influential positions in planning says developers need to know in advance where they might be stopped from building after they've already purchased land.
There's no point someone coming up and saying, I've got land and I want to develop housing, and someone coming along right at the end and saying, oops, sorry, we found a koala. We need to do the good strategic planning so that everyone knows where the environmentally sensitive areas are and where they're not, so that we can plan our communities to grow in those directions.
And to maintain biodiversity, Australia has to tackle urban sprawl.
We should be aiming to get the vast majority of our new housing now as attached housing of some form. That's not to say we shouldn't continue to provide housing on the fringe, but we should be aiming to provide the vast majority.
But at the moment, continued developments up the east coast don't spell good news for the koala.
That mightn't be a big impact if it's just one small lot, but you can imagine, urban development on the large scale that it occurs, what ends up happening is it's in effect a death by 1,000 cuts.
Campaigners say that protecting habitat and listing the koala as vulnerable go hand in hand. But in response to SPS, the Environment Minister said he could take up to 90 days to come to his decision, and as Australians continue to spread out, that decision could have long-lasting impacts. Bill Code, World News Australia.